Welcome to the Reciprocity with AG podcast, hosted by Andrew Gadomski. Here, we explore ideas and experiences that transform lives with elegance and integrity. Andrew spent over 15 years as a workforce analyst for Fortune 500 companies in finance, healthcare, and supply chain sectors. In 2022, he took on the coveted role of Senior Operations Research Analyst at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, committed to enhancing cybersecurity and AI skills for the American people, its residents, and tribal nations. Andrew founded Aspen Analytics, a firm that leads in compliance and ethical challenges in our AI-driven era. Their Canopy platform turns risk into action, offering real-time policy solutions across wage and human capital disclosures, algorithmic and AI decisions, and cyber risk to HR departments. We will now continue our conversation with Craig Fisher.
Which class? Primary, secondary, maybe it was your grade school, professional or personal? What made you raise your hand the most and participate?
Yeah, and I'll be quick about it. I had an award-winning music teacher in elementary school, Mr. Townsend. He was a black guy, and he was very advanced. And he taught us not just music, but music theory, music history, all the things. It's one of those classes where he would play a major fifth, and you'd have to identify it from your seat, right? What is this? And so I learned a lot about having a musical ear and being able to listen to things, but also a ton about our country and the world and what music really means. And he got me very interested in research and learning at a young age. And then fast forward all the way to college. I was pretty bored with most of my college classes, but I had one teacher who taught revolutionary American history in such a way as to make it extremely dramatic. And it was storytelling, and it was fascinating because our country's history is rough. And there's so much to having a good teacher. And somebody that does make you want to raise your hand and participate and actually learn and care. I've always strived myself to be inspiring in that way as well. If you ask me, what do I do, or what would I want to do if I didn't do what I do, I just usually say I teach, and that's kind of what I do.
If I was to think about music for a minute, just recently, a woman who taught me the piano, a lot of people don't know that I know how to play. She passed. And I didn't realize the emotional connection that I had with, even after doing this podcast for the last 20 sessions. And I think sometimes we might forget when we raised our hand, when we participated. And I think sometimes we have to pause and ask ourselves the question, because it might actually change the way we operate the next day or the next week or the next month, or you get re-inspired on something. And, for American history, as an example, if you thought about that recently, maybe that means it's going to change what you read next. We tend to get caught up in being September 26th rather than September 26th, 2003, which is a long time ago now that I think about it. You and I didn't know each other, but I think trying to think, how long have we known each other?
Probably since
Maybe it's
11.
You had to look it up?
I'm just guessing that's when SRSC started.
Probably 14 years or so.
I think they started that, kind of based on the TalentNet model, and then got me involved as well. So we got to do a lot of fun stuff.
No, that was a good time, and it has been a good time. I get to do a monthly webinar with them now that is only on the auditing and the governance that I do, which is, some people find it very interesting, and some people find it about as interesting as the data stuff that I've done for the last 15 years. How do you create community amongst the team, or how do you diffuse conflict within that team to strengthen the connectiveness of it? You get to pick one, so don't give me the thing as a consultant where you pick both, just one.
Yeah, so I'm just interested in what other people say. Okay. And For me, that means when I give someone attention, I am very focused on them and I make them feel important. And it's not just something that I am doing, I'm generally and genuinely interested. I show it in a way that makes everyone feel like they have a voice. Within a team, if there's conflict, I ask people directly, tell me what you think. I want to hear it. And that might be in front of other people or it might just be directly, but everybody gets to say so with me.
Like this podcast and its transparency? Then you will love Aspen Analytics. Their audit documentation enable employers to share with investors, analysts, and regulators how their chosen HR practices using AI, wage equity, and analysis reduces significant business risks. Remove these risks before they become real problems. Find out more at www.aspenanalytics.io.
What type of technology do you think will be retired almost completely? But once it's retired, how will that enable us to interact more human to human?
There's so many things, but I just found the other day in a drawer I was cleaning out an iPod. Music apps are going to evolve and consolidate. We don't need Amazon Music and Apple Music and Spotify and Pandora and all these things, right? So something there will become very AI oriented. But what I hope and want to happen is that it becomes a thing that we share more of again. Music to a lot of people is very personal, right? And I occasionally will, in videos that I post or TikToks or whatever, put some of my personality and music that I like in with it. But I'm not always just making a statement about the music. I want more community around good music, and my tastes are all over the place.
For a long time, I had a car. It's indifferent what it was, but it had an iPad connector in the glove compartment, so you could play it through the radio. This is a pretty old car.
I've got one in my truck.
And I remember buying it, and I bought it in 1997, maybe 1996, and it was the U2 version of an iPod. And it was one of the first ones that came out, and it was black and red, and it came with the entire catalog of U2 already programmed on it, which was
I
fascinating.
remember this.
And it was one of those things when I sold the car 20 years later, it still was working. It was this idea of sustainability that, to your point, maybe there's just this natural convergence of this where we're going to get to the point again of I didn't need anything else other than that one thing. I don't need all these different music apps. And I think that that's interesting that then you share that with others. How have you helped another colleague who is struggling with the infamous work-life balance?
Yeah. So I do this all the time. People come to me when they want to step out of corporate and start doing what we do, which is consulting work. And so they think that this is the myth. They think that they're going to get to continue to make donuts, right? So they're really good at making donuts. So surely they can step away and make donuts for other people and do it on their own time. And great, get to make donuts and have more work-life balance. The reality is you don't get to make donuts as much when you're doing it for yourself. You have to build a team and people and colleagues to do it with you and for you. And so, this is why I step away and still do coding and web design and stuff on my own, because I need that balance in my life. And so I tell them, when you feel like you're detached, you're spending too much time collecting money, for instance, go make some donuts and balance your brain, the process of making donuts so that you're not too detached, but also then strict guidelines. My calendar is there's no appointments before 10 and there's no appointments after 5. And, I'm a master blocker. And so I have to, don't wish, everybody wants you to look at their new product and give them some free time. And that's a hard no. You can set up a Calendly with a $500 hourly rate. Here you go. Here's how you put time on my calendar. It's a great idea. Actually works.
Yeah, I've talked about it on the podcast before, but today's Friday. Okay. So today's one of the podcast days. It's a deliberate decoupling from doing whatever it is that I do, and it is interesting. But a few minutes ago, we were talking about chicken and dumplings.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I block that time, and I think that sometimes people get the time dictated to them, and we don't have enough there to really help us stay focused when we should stay focused. If you want to create a music group, what type of music would you play? Who do you want to listen to it, maybe? And I need a band name.
If I could do it myself and get people to do it with me, I would create a kind of an alt bluegrass type of thing. I like banjos and strings and fiddles and stuff like that. So it would be something like that. Think Billy Strings type stuff. And the name, probably the Fabulous Fish Dogs.
The Fabulous Fish Dogs. I like it. Probably wouldn't use a PH for fish.
No, that's somebody else's deal. I already own fishdogs.com, so we're just going to go with that. I like
That
reusing
sounds
my
good.
IP. Yeah.
So what was your first job, and what learning have you picked up that you still use today from that job?
So my first real job out of school was I got hired to sell pharmaceuticals for Glaxo. And I learned all kinds of great things, but I'm a mix of creative and analytic. And so I like to see how creative things that I do can affect my numbers. And so we had a contest one time, and we had these boxes of product that were orange in color. And I took stickers of the product name and stuck them on oranges and brought bunches of oranges to all my doctor's offices when I would drop off the suggested product with the sticker on
Okay.
it. Now, the company didn't want me doing things like that, but I won the sales contest and I won a trip. What I learned from that is if you're not breaking the law and you're not disclosing company information that you're not supposed to, occasionally it is a good thing to do before you ask, and just be brave and bold and get out there and try things. Being a little offbeat and out of the box with the way that you try to sell an idea is a good thing.
Tell me about a picture or a poster or a piece of artwork, maybe that was part of your childhood.
So my parents were hippies. I'm a Native American. My dad's family is all Native Americans, and my parents were solid hippies. I was born because they were avoiding the Vietnam War. So my dad was draft age at that time. My mom did all these very creative things to our house to decorate it. She did decotage, which is where you use newspaper or magazine paper or things like that to be creative. And she wallpapered our front foyer just inside our front door with Sunday comics. It was really cool. You see this now where there's like newspaper walls in cool restaurants and things like that. Well, she did it at our house, and it was very, very creative and
That's
smart. And it influenced me. But I had friends over one time, and I lived in a rich neighborhood, adjacent to a rich neighborhood. And my friends came over, elementary school, and they said, "Oh, that's cool." And then the next day at school, they were absolutely making fun of me for being the poor kid that has newspaper on his walls. I'm like, wah, wah.
Wow. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you might see these records behind me. I did something similar where I took the records out, preserved them, but I put all the record albums behind me on the wall.
Yeah.
And which is crazy because you and I are similar in age group and obviously same generation, but people would see the stuff that they probably grew up with. Who is your best supervisor or colleague that you worked with and why? You don't have to say who it was, but tell me about them.
There is a gentleman who I worked for. I can name him. His name's Randy Goulian. He probably won't ever hear this, but Allegis literally bought his search firm to build their RPO. His search firm became Allegis Global Solutions. And so it was one of those deals where he got to stick around and help run the business. And he ran basically my team. And he just taught me a lot about celebrating your people. And so we would go to a pitch meeting at a big company, right? United Healthcare or something. And afterwards, we would go, back to the airport or wherever we were going to have lunch. And he wanted to do tequila shots. Now, he's not a big drinker. He certainly had the capacity to do so, but he was really just pushing you to celebrate your team and your partnership and things like that. And he's a very good mentor, great guy. He also told me, you'll love this. He says, I'm going to do an impression. Craig, of all the things that I've invested in, watches hold their value more than anything else. It's the watches, Craig.
It's
Now I buy watches.
I think I identify with that. I
Yeah.
buy a watch every time there's a significant event in my life.
Yeah.
It could be $4, it could be more, but it's something to mark the occasion. That's a great takeaway. If you were not permitted to use your phone for a month, how would you substitute it?
Very good question. So I go when I have these periods of focus and I'm working, my phone is face down. I don't have any way to know anything about it. I don't have notifications on my watch or anything like that turned on during these times. I could easily go a month without my phone because I have a full house of media to keep me entertained, right? I've got a 4K DVD player and things like that. I'm pretty good with directions, so I don't really need that. And otherwise, we'd have to do chats like this in order to communicate.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like that. You've already got what you need to do what you need, but you've also programmed in that you don't have the dependency on it.
That's right. People do get
And
upset with me for not answering their message for hours, but that's okay.
oh yeah, I get that. But hey, I was trying to get a hold of you. I'm like, yes, I know how to use the mute button, or I actually do turn off the phone. And my favorite is when if you actually call my voice message, it says, "Oh, you've used an old technology, so let's not waste the opportunity and sing a poem, and then phone me back. I'll know who you are. So have some fun with it." Last question is what's the largest or what's the most expensive business mistake you've observed and what have you learned from it? You don't have to say if it was yours or it was somebody else's, but tell me about it.
Yeah. So in recruiting in the 90s and 2000s, what would happen very often is you would place a high value person or team within an organization, and then that team would turn around and have, or that organization would turn around and have layoffs or something, and then they wouldn't pay you because they've got to stay for a certain amount of time. I learned, and I observed this from one of the companies that I was a leader at that were doing it wrong. So when I went to my next organization as a leader, and I also ran a full desk most of the time as well, I built into our contracts just these simple words: through no fault of their own, right? So if the consultant or the executive or permanent person that you've placed at this leaves within a year, but through no fault of their own, so company had layoffs, not my fault, not their fault, you still pay us. And I sued more than one company over it and won every time. And one of them was the largest consulting company in the world.
I like that. I ran a desk years ago and did something similar, actually, that said if it's a involuntary leave, right, without a breach,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was the same concept. It didn't happen that often. And when it did, I think it happened maybe 3 times, maybe twice. In those cases, it was, Andrew, we need to replace so-and-so. There's sad decisions here. That means how quickly can you do it? Because I have to pay you twice. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the silver medalist isn't around anymore and available, but we'll kick it back up again.
Well, and that's
All
when
right.
you can play let's make a deal and make them feel better about it. But the intention is there. And, I let people know up front, look, this is the deal, and I'm going to hold you to it. When I say I sued them, I mean I had an attorney write a letter or whatever.
You haven't had a business long enough unless you've gone to a lawsuit.
That's right.
All right. So now we're going to go into the inevitable lightning round. Are you ready?
Yes.
Valentine's Day, flowers or chocolates?
Flowers.
Museum or aquarium?
Museum.
Chocolate caramels or chocolate pretzels?
Chocolate caramels.
Black or red licorice?
Red.
Go to the pool, go to the beach.
Beach.
Hike or bike?
Hike.
Can you go on speaker on your phone in public?
Sure.
Cocktail, wine, or sparkling water?
Cocktail.
Next one is word associations. When I say Disney, you think what?
Jimmy Kimmel.
Okay. When I say race, you think what?
Win.
When I say boat, you think what?
Lake.
When I say journey, you think what?
Any way you want it.
What? And when I say shoes, you think what?
I think always put shoe trees in your shoes if you want them to last long.
Oh, shoe trees. I love it. Well, Craig, that's it. I appreciate you being on the podcast. And where should people get a hold of you? And what do you have coming up next that you want them to attend?
Well, I wrote a couple of books, Hiring Humans and Paint Your Store. One is about the convergence of automation and AI and keeping the human touch in the hiring process. For employers, that's called Hiring Humans. The other, Paint Your Store, is a networking book to help people get to their next thing. They're both available at hiring-humans.com, anywhere you want to buy a book. And that's a great way to get a hold of me. And we'll talk about that and give some of those books away at the TalentNet Live Conference, November 7th. It's at Caliber Collision headquarters in Lewisville, Texas. We'll be networking with about 200 of our peers, and information for that is at talenttexas.com.
Thank you. Appreciate you. We're going to close it out. Again, Craig Fisher, longtime friend and superior expert. Thanks so much for listening to the Reciprocity podcast with AG.
Thanks for listening to the Reciprocity with AG podcast. You can enjoy more episodes by favoriting the podcast at leading podcast platforms. On behalf of Andrew Gadomski and all our guests, we enjoyed the time spent with you and ask you to consider reciprocating powerful learnings to and from all you meet.